Here's something I want to point out. When you're installing your baseboard on a wood floor like this, you've always got to install that base after the fact. You know, that's the best way to do it. But you're going to get stuff like this. Do you see that gap there? Look at this gap from here to there. This floor has got a bow to it, and no matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to push this down tight. And you may think, shave off the bottom of the trim of the baseboard. No, I don't want to do all that. You don't normally do that when you're installing a wood floor such as this. Okay? There's a different way to do it, but let's talk a little bit more about stuff like this here. Here's that same piece of baseboard. See, there's the dip in the floor right there, and look at the end. The end of the base is down tight to the floor, but there's still a gap right in there too. See there? Down there? So, just because you're putting a wood floor down doesn't mean that's going to automatically make your floor perfectly nice and flat. There's something we're going to have to do there, and it might have to do with that trim. This is what usually gets done to cover something up like this. Normally, if you go to somebody's house and if you see the baseboard down on top of a wood floor, usually they'll have a little piece of trim at the bottom. You may think, how can they do that? Well, the only good reason I can give you is because if you have a little small piece of trim, it's flexible. So see how that dips down? Even if you had a shorter piece of base, a 3 1/4 inch piece of base, you're still going to have that gap. In fact, let me show you. Got that piece of base. Here's that 3 1/4 inch tall piece. See there? That gap is still there. This flexes, the 3 1/4 flexes a little bit more than the 5 1/4 inch, okay? But I still, no matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to pull that down all the way. So you're going to have a gap. And you don't want a gap like that. You've got this nicely painted, finished baseboard, and you've got a nice floor here. You don't want to see that crack there. So get a little piece of trim. You put that down there. See how this here? I can just push that down onto the floor. See how nice that looks? Okay, I'll have to attach that, and I'll have to caulk that line too. I'll caulk the top of the baseboard. A lot of caulking to do when you've got white baseboard. But this bottom is gonna fit the floor nice. Okay. Now this is a 1/4 round, and what I'm going to end up doing is I've got something a little smaller. It doesn't stick out as far. Okay, and that's going to fit nice. See there? It doesn't stick out into the room as far as this 1/4 round, but I've seen them do it either way. So that's another thing you're going to have to consider when you're installing a hardwood floor.